Hello everyone, AmyR here with Prairie Paper and Ink, and I'm so excited to be participating in the Simon Says Stamp STAMPtember blog hop. There's a bunch of fabulous designers that are posting creations with a bunch of the new Simon Says Stamp STAMPtember products. If you're not familiar with STAMPtember, it is a huge month-long extravaganza, I guess is the best way to describe it. Tons of releases. Simon Says Stamp collaborates with other companies and they make exclusive products. There's stamps, there's giveaways, there's all kinds of new things. So I will have the link to my blog post and links to the hop, and all that stuff will be in my blog linked directly below the video if you are interested in checking it out. So for today's video, I decided to create, they're technically cards, but my idea with them was they would work great as like little art or motivational pieces, little inspiration pieces as it were. So you could send them as a card, but a person could totally frame this or put it on your desk or just put it somewhere that, you see it on the regular and it motivates you. So yeah, this is the Simon Says Stamp Running With Your Heart stamp set. And I am stamping it onto some Canson XL watercolor paper. And I'm stamping it onto the more textured side, even though this watercolor paper isn't heavily textured, but it's got a little bit of some tooth to it. So I'm stamping the two main images in this set with Simon Says Stamp clear embossing ink, and I'd already treated the watercolor paper with my anti-static powder tool. And then I'm pouring Simon Says Stamp Antique Gold Detail Embossing Powder over it and then embossing it. And I have a hard time picking up in the pictures, but this stuff embossed like a dream. Even the really fine little details of the words and whatnot, it picked it up so well. Like, it was just fabulous and it's gorgeous. I love the shade of gold of this powder. So I decided to do two because, one isn't enough. And I couldn't decide between the two images, so I had to use both. So once I was done stamping and embossing both those images, and I was using the second largest die from the basic rectangles die set from Simon Says as well. That was just my guide for the placement of the stamps. So once everything was stamped and embossed, I'm taping these down to a masonite board to kind of hold everything in place. It did warp a little bit with the heat embossing, so that's also another reason why I'm taping it all down so it stays flat so I can watercolor over this. So I got everything taped, and that was another reason why I was using the die as a guide, because I do plan on die cutting these, so I wanted to make sure that I had enough of a border around these because I wasn't totally sure what what would happen with the watercoloring. I generally just fly by the seat of my pants and see where it all goes. So I like to have options. So I pulled out my Mission Gold watercolors for this and a large brush. This is a size 12 brush. And I used a ton of clean, clear water over the first image here, just really soaking up this paper. And then I'm just picking up the color from my palette and dropping it directly onto this wet water here. And just kind of letting the colors do their thing. And I went pretty heavy-handed because this is what I do. I don't layer colors too often. I'm not comfortable with that yet. But I wanted to use 2 to 3 colors for each one and just kind of let them do their thing. So I dropped the colors in, and then when I was doing this, I was like, I wonder what would happen if I lifted it up and started moving it around. So that's what I did. I just kind of played with it and really let the colors completely move around. And I love how they traveled and yet stayed within the area, the boundaries I created by just adding that clean, clear water. So move that around a bit, but I didn't want to move it around too much so that it all ended up turning into one color. So I let it just sit and do its thing. And then I decided to do pretty much the exact same thing with the second one, just using different colors, but similar. Because I thought these would make a nice little set to give to somebody. It seems like everyone really gets into, like running, or even, it doesn't even have to specifically be running. The second image, yes, but this first one can still, I think, apply to so many things. I like images and quotes like this. Like, they're just such great motivation. So for the second one, I did like a green and a blue and the same purple. Actually, the same blue and the same purple as the first one. But this time adding green instead of a pink. And then I moved it around a little bit, but not too much. And then let it dry. And I will admit I sped it up with my heat tool to completely dry everything because I was impatient. But let it dry, and then I spritzed it with my Distress sprayer. And I love how these reacted with water. That was really fun. So I picked up, let it sit for maybe 30 seconds, and then picked up the water with my paper towel and got that cool splatter effect. And because, as usual, that wasn't enough, I decided to add some more splatter. So I just mixed up the same colors on an acrylic block here and just kind of splattered it onto both of these pieces with that big brush. So I got some big just blobs of color. And then this, I think it was the point when my camera battery ended up dying. But I let that sit for a little bit, and then I picked it up with my paper towel because one, didn't have the time to let it sit and like fully dry, and two, I didn't want it to be like big blobs of heavy color. I just wanted the more splatter effect of it all. So once everything was completely dry, I'm going to peel off this tape, and you just basically peel it against itself. And I go kind of slow when I'm doing it. I've sped this up a little bit, but in real life, I'm going a little bit slow so I don't tear any of this. So you just peel the tape back on itself, and usually it will remove quite cleanly. So once I have all of the tape removed, I'm going to run these through my die cut machine with that same rectangle die. And I tape the die in place with the same painter's tape to make sure that that didn't shift when I ran it through my machine and end up like die cutting it crooked, because after you go to all that work, that's definitely just a total kick in the teeth. So die cut both of these pieces with that same rectangle die. And then for my card base, I decided to go with black cardstock. So I've got a full sheet of 8.5 by 11 black cardstock, and I lined it up at 4¼ inches here, and I'm going to score it at the 4¼ inch mark. And then I'm going to turn this and cut it at the 5.5 inch mark. So I've got two A2 sized cards, so 4¼ by 5.5 inches. And I just use my fabulous little Teflon bone folder for this. It is a must-have tool. I don't know how I lived all those years of card making without this thing. So use my Teflon bone folder to really press that crease in. And while I was creating these cards, I was thinking about, I normally do white cardstock as my background. That's just habit. And then I was thinking about what would really make these images pop. And I was like, black cardstock would look great. And then I've been thinking about this abstract triangles background now since it showed up. And I absolutely love this stamp. It's fabulous. And if you guys had seen Christina Werner's video, I'm positive she designed this stamp, because she did a video not too long ago where she did it all by hand with that gorgeous triangle background. It was fabulous. So glad she's released this stamp, because I would never be able to achieve the things she can achieve. So if I can just stamp it, I'm great. So that's what I decided to use. And I decided to stamp it directly onto these card bases. So I treated everything with anti-static powder. I also protected what will be the back of the cards with some Post-it tape, just because I only wanted the stamp stamped onto the front of these cards. And I just applied the anti-static powder around the edges, because that's all you're going to see. And then I inked up the stamp with the same clear ink, and then just made sure to press around the edges. I didn't worry about the middle because no one's going to see it, even though, gosh, it would just look fabulous to do this just on the black cardstock, maybe, and throw a sentiment on here, and it would be fabulous. Like, seriously, I could just go on and on about this all day. But anyway, I used the same antique gold embossing powder and applied it just to the edges and tapped off all the excess. I did that to both, and then I heated this up with my heat tool, and I I love the geometric abstract look of this background. It's just fabulous. And then doing it in antique gold over black cardstock, it is so beyond pretty. So heated all of that up until it was completely melted. And then I'm able to pull off that Post-it tape. So you can see now the back of the card is nice and clean and crisp. And then I just rub my hands on there to remove any of that anti-static powder. And once I had that all removed, I can adhere the card fronts with a generous amount of foam tape, because even though I taped them down, I used quite a bit of water, so they're warped a little bit. The card bases themselves are also warped a little bit, but my method with this is I'm just going to set them under something heavy for a while, and they'll completely flatten out, and then they'll be good to go. So I adhered both of those with foam tape. And then I decided to stamp one more sentiment from the set. I stamped it onto just a scrap of black cardstock, embossed it with the same embossing powder, and then popped that onto the card front with foam tape. And then as a final touch, I kept the insides just black. Usually I will add some lighter cardstock or just a sheet of white cardstock to the inside of a card like this so that you can see any writing, obviously. But I really loved how this embossed powder looked on the black, so I decided to stamp the sentiments, emboss them with this embossing powder. And then when it comes time to give this to someone, I would just use a really bright gel pen, you know, a gold or a silver or a white gel pen, to write my message to the recipient, and then that would look fabulous as well, because it would just pop on that black cardstock. So just a little something something. So that finishes off my cards for today. Like I said, I will have a link below the video to my blog post. I'll have the pictures, I'll have links to all the supplies used, the info about STAMPtember, links to all the other blogs on the hop. Make sure to check them all out. It's, I'm sure, going to be absolutely fabulous. These designers are phenomenal. So check that all out if you are interested. And then at the very end of this video, I'll also have links to 2 more videos using products from the STAMPtember release. Thank you all so much for watching and subscribing, thumbs upping my videos and all the comments. I read everything, I respond as often as I can, and I really appreciate the support. And I will see you all very soon in the next video. Bye.